I guess,
Comfy?
Yeah.
You ever done a podcast before?
No.
Are you chatty?
Dependent.
That's fine. You seem warm, so it'll be fine.
You seem warm. Like that.
People are warm.
Yeah.
We've had a good trip this time.
Yeah, we have had some
No
really
pressure.
good conversations.
So, who are we sat with?
Today.
Where are we sat?
Yeah.
Well, we're in Nethy Bridge in the Cairngorms National Park, and in my wee garden studio, where I make and teach jewellery. I studied jewellery and silversmithing at Edinburgh College of Art.
Okay.
I started in 2000, and I
Doing it for a while then.
have been doing it for a while, but I took a break.
Yeah.
So I did, it was a BA in jewellery and silversmithing, and I took a break once I'd graduated. I didn't really feel like I wanted to be doing jewellery full time at that point. I kind of felt like I was looking for a little bit more meaning in what I was doing, and at that point in time I felt like I didn't just want to make pretty things for people to wear. So I wasn't really ready to get into it at that point, and so I did a bit of travelling, and I was like also working. I'd like work 4 jobs to get enough money to go and travel and come back and work and travel and come and kind of did that for a while I didn't have any responsibilities, and I naturally found myself gravitating towards, when I was away, I'd go away for long periods of time, and I found myself doing some volunteer work, and I was mostly doing some like marine conservation, environmental stuff, and also sports therapy. And that all felt really meaningful, because it was like, it's like the planet and also the people and my kind of connection to them.
Right.
And I ended up eventually working in marine conservation for a while. And so I'd be going out to sea for 6 weeks at a time, coming home and making jewellery, just kind of for friends, and not really thinking in terms of business at that point. I was just kind of keeping my skills going, and then go away to sea, come back, go away, come back, and that was kind of my life for about 6 years. And then I had my son, and I had a job lined up to go away, and then I said to them, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant, and they were like, oh
okay.
Job retracted, no pregnant women on board. So that was kind of it. That was the end of going to sea. And so then I started doing, being a mum's like really important to me, that I was putting into that everything that I had. But then with the jewellery, the nice thing was that, while he was a wee baby in a basket, I could sit making jewellery while he was napping. And so I kind of kept going at it. And
at this point, not thinking of it as a business, doing it for friends and family.
Yeah, starting to think more like, okay, I'm not going to sea anymore. I kind of built up a career going to sea.
Yeah.
And, it's quite a good one, but it's not a good one for having a family.
No.
And you kind of have to decide at one point, like, what are you going to do? And so it's like, right, I'm going to do family. I met my husband, and then once we had our child, it was like, okay, I need to think differently about how I'm going to do a career. And having the jewellery skills, it just kind of organically developed into making around having my son. And so it was like, when the moments that I could get, I would make. And then I sort of gradually started, friends would ask, oh, can you make this? Oh, I'm getting married. Could you do my rings for me? And gradually I started having people kind of just coming to me asking, can you do this? And
like, oh, I could do this.
then I was like, oh, I started having like images to put onto Instagram.
Right,
And
because you were doing it more consistently,
because I was
right?
like, oh, I've got things to show people that I'm making things, for people. And so that kind of became the thing, was that I didn't really feel that I had the time or energy to put into like making collections and doing like stock jewellery like that. It just naturally kind of came that I was doing special commissions for people.
Right.
Because they were just coming and asking me like, can you do this? Can you do that? And it's like, yeah. And I really enjoy that, someone coming and asking, can you make this for me? Usually it's like an expression of love from one person to another. And
did that fill the void of not wanting to make jewellery because you wanted to do something with meaning?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
right.
Totally. And so that became like the motivator. It's like I wasn't really motivated. Like I love working hands-on. I was really lucky. I went to Edinburgh College of Art and I was taught by Dorothy Hogg, who's not with us anymore, and Sue Cross and Grant McCaig, and they were all really excellent tutors and very supportive. And they taught me so much, it's
right.
like I just couldn't be here without what they taught me. But when I came out of it, I felt I just needed, at that age, it's like 17 when I started, 21 when I finished. And I was kind of always like looking for a bit more meaning, a bit more purpose. Like, what's the motivation in doing that? I kind of went to art school just because it was like, when you're at school and they're like, well, what are you going to do? What are you good at? And it's like, it's always been art. And so it was almost expected, you go to art school. And so I did. And then I was like, no, but what do I do now? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that's in some ways quite unfortunate with university is when you enter university, you're a child.
Yeah.
When you leave university, you're an adult.
Yeah.
Like, it's only 4 years, 4 years. But it's the difference with child to adult.
Yeah, and they're very formative years. I don't know, I think everyone's got different levels of maturity at that age, but for me it was quite a struggle, like going from, being at home, being at school, having like your
big
set of friends, and then like everything changes when you go to uni, especially if you move away from home to go, and then I was like really trying to find my feet, and I did struggle quite a bit with that, and there was always that sort of searching for more meaning.
Yeah.
And so now doing special commissions for people is just, I'm like, so excited by it. It's so amazing to be able to use that craft that was taught to kind of be of service to people. And I just get so excited when people come with like a sort of vision, or sometimes they don't even really know what it is, but they know kind of what they want to express to someone. And then we get chatting and ideas come out, and then it's like, okay, this is it. This is like basically the symbol of your love for the person. And it's like the intangible made into a tangible thing you can give someone and be like,
there's so much more meaning.
It's translation, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're like translating thoughts and feelings into a physical product.
Yeah.
Somehow. You become you become the storyteller of that story.
Yeah, and it's amazing because people come to me and, because of what they're asking, they're telling me like really personal stories. Like some of the pieces that I've made have been, symbolic of like death and some of the deepest emotions, and that's really special, and I really treat that with respect. It's a real honour to be able to take someone's story like that and give them something that they can hold. And
Forever.
yeah, it's something that's
You're really been let into their life at that point. Really let into their life.
yeah. Some of the moments with people, it's like, you know, can have people like crying in here, and also when I'm teaching, so I've got the sort of 2 workbenches here and the one in the middle. So if I have one person in, we've got a workbench each, and if I have 2 people in, then I'll sit in the middle and demonstrate from there.
Okay, right.
But it's quite an amazing thing how, you know, for the workshops, you're in here for like sort of 2 to 4 hours.
Yep.
And over that period of time, you get chatting and asking people about their lives. And it's amazing how much people open up, and you end up getting into really...
It's almost like therapy.
Yeah, it really is. And, it, you know, and they talk about in therapy that, you know, one of the sort of practices is like walking with someone, so you're not doing like eye-to-eye contact, so it's not like the pressure of all right, tell me how you're feeling. But when you're sitting side by side and you're working away, it's like things just start coming out, and it's not so much pressure, and it's it can be quite a lovely thing.
That's a really good communication frame. So people that listen to the podcast, I start to sound like a broken record. I used to be an engineer, and communication was a big part of that. And the difference in conversation between sitting across the table and coming round next to someone, whether it's therapy, communicating a project, or communicating in the way you're doing, it completely changes the dynamic of the conversation.
Oh, yeah. Totally. It's like being side by side. It's making it equals. And, you know, I find that even with being a mother, if I'm like trying to communicate with my son face to face, it's quite a lot of pressure. Whereas if I'm sitting next to him, it's like, it's so much more free flowing. So it is, and it's a lovely thing, because when I'm working on commissions, I'm kind of in here by myself, listening to podcasts or audiobooks and a bit of music. And I like that as well, the sort of solitary time where you're just working away. But then it's nice teaching, because then it's also having the human connection and meeting people, and it's
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, and it's like, it's people who are on holiday, but it's also just people in the community, and it's a really nice way to get to know, you know, someone that I might bump into like twice a year in the village, actually coming in and having like 2 or 3 hours of chatting with them. It's like, oh, that's actually like a bond has been made there, which before it was just a passing.
Hi. It's nice.
Which is the majority way that we communicate with people, is a passing bump into them in the street.
Yeah.
That is the norm for today's society.
Yeah.
Which is quite sad in itself.
Yeah, totally.
So when you went to university to study jewellery and then came out the back, did you know you wanted to be a jeweller?
No. I thought I probably didn't want to be a jeweller. I just was not fully satisfied with the idea of just making necklaces and earrings and things. It was like it had to have something else to motivate me, because I, you know, to really get into something, get passionate about it, I need to feel motivated.
Yeah.
And I hadn't yet found that piece of, oh, you can really connect with people and give them that like really special thing. Because a lot at art school, it was, you know, it was a lot of design and making and learning the craft skills, but you know, it's like you're designing for project briefs. Which is great. Like, I also like someone kind of like telling me what to do. Like, can you do this? Okay, I'll do it. But there wasn't like a meaning. So sometimes I try and put in a little bit of, I try and like pull in a little bit of like something a little bit political or philosophical into what I was making in a classical, you know, teenage way. But that was like the beginning of me kind of, you know, getting into philosophy and feeling like there's got to be a reason for this, like what's the purpose and, and I do think when again, not to sound like a classic student, but like after I left, a couple of years after I left, I went to India.
Right.
And when I was there, I came out of art school with that feeling of like, but like, why? I don't want to just do frivolous, pretty things. Mm-hmm. But then when I went there and I saw like the like elaborately colourful decorated buses and everything's just like an explosion of colour and
right.
And it was like a celebration of life, like compared to the buses that we've got here.
Yeah, well,
like your double decker or whatever.
Yeah.
The whatever colour the paid advertising is on it, right?
Yeah, totally. But yeah, exactly. With advertising, it's like used as a kind of like corporate wagon.
Yeah.
Whereas over there, it was like these amazing, beautiful celebrations of life in colour and pattern. And so I started to think, maybe there is like purpose in making beautiful things. It's just as a celebration of life, and to enjoy beauty and but then I still didn't have that little extra. When I was working in marine conservation, I was like, maybe this is it, maybe it's the conservation stuff. But then it wasn't until that kind of fell away and then people started asking me. It was like best friends saying like, oh, could you make my wedding ring? And I was like, oh, wow, I'm making a wedding ring for my best friend.
Right, yeah.
And then somehow suddenly I was like, I made my Instagram page and then I was like, oh, I've never even met this person before and they're asking me to make something for them. And still, even though I didn't know them, it was like, oh, I love that they're asking me to make that for them. That's so special. And then that I realised was the motivating factor, is like being able to kind of provide a service to someone of, I can kind of make your vision into reality. And
is that more heartwarming or motivating when it's a stranger that asks you to do it or when it's a friend that asks you to do it?
I don't think that I feel strongly either way because I kind of like part of my own philosophy is that we are all equals and I think anyone's expression of love to another person is like that's where it's at for me. That's kind of the point.
Right.
So yeah, it's I've had a couple come in here before asking could I make a necklace for their daughter because he had terminal illness.
Oh my goodness.
And wanted to give her something. And that is,
it's an honour to kind of feel.
It's such an honour that they came and asked me to do that and it's really humbling and I that has got just as much power, if not more, than a best friend asking, can you make my wedding ring?
Yeah.
It's for me it's the energy of the emotion. It doesn't really matter who's saying it because it's all totally valid.
Does it weigh on you, things like that? Obviously the nice stories, I want me and my wife, that's cool, but what about the
it doesn't weigh on me. I do sort of carry a little bit of the sort of frequency of that interaction for a while. Like, oh gosh, that was such a moment of like real vulnerability and the couple coming to me and speaking to me about it and for like a few days after I'm thinking, oh gosh, it's such a lot that they're dealing with, but I wouldn't say it brings me down or that it weighs on me, but more it's just this is life and I fully accept that life is can be beautiful and full of love and the special moments, but it also is harsh and suffering and loss and there's got to be space for all of those things, I think.
Yeah, Space for all those things is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Because without one, there wouldn't be the other. Like
Yeah.
the good bits don't feel, especially running a business. We know this firsthand, as you will. The good bits don't feel as good unless you have the bad bits to compare it to, right?
Yeah.
So you've now got your husband's built this studio, built the gallery, built the bothy as well. So you got like a nice little kind of compound going on here, a little creative compound. When you started, you weren't here though, were you? You were just in a flat in Edinburgh.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, we were in Edinburgh, and I was working away at sea, and my husband at the time was working in humanitarian aid.
Okay.
So we both were kind of away and back to Edinburgh quite a lot. And when I was in Edinburgh, I would work at my kitchen table, but I also had a space at Summer Hall.
Okay, yeah, I know Summer Hall well.
And that was really nice because a lovely group of people in there, and it was nice to kind of be in a little creative community. And then when we moved up here, I brought all my tools with me, but they were kind of like sitting in the sunroom, and then I'd like bring them out onto the kitchen table and work away, and then
Put them away again.
put them all away and make sure my son wasn't picking up saw blades and
Yeah, that's true.
all of that. And so then, when my husband built me this space, it was just an incredible change in kind of the way that I could dedicate myself to what I was doing, both in terms of, being efficient with my time and making for special commissions, but then also having people in for workshops, because I was teaching up at the Smiddy in Banff.
Okay,
But it's a long commute,
Yeah.
and our car was a rust bucket,
Right.
and it was just like, and also my husband was so busy building all of this stuff, I didn't really have the time to be like going and coming and going and coming, and so then this was like a much shorter commute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the wonderful thing is that I can fit it in around being there for my son.
Right.
So, take him to school, take the dog for a walk, come home, get in here and work, and have my workshops in like school hours mostly.
Okay.
Nice.
And then I can go and pick him up at the end of the day, and I'm fully there present for him.
Presumably that suits clientele as well. Because
Yeah.
your workshops are in school hours.
Yeah. So I have it that these are kind of like my set hours, but say they really wanted like an evening or a weekend class,
Yeah.
then I'll do that.
Yeah.
But it's not every week that I would be doing that. So yeah, it's great because it kind of basically the structure of the business is all built around like being able to be there for my son.
That's cool though.
And so I feel like really privileged in that respect because I can take him to school, I can pick him up from school, and then I'm there for him, and still in the times that he's not here just be working away.
Right.
You have your dedicated time
Yeah.
for both, really.
Yeah, totally.
What about the isolation side, moving out to here because you obviously enjoyed the summer hall, there's a lot of other creatives around it.
Yeah.
Some people thrive with that, some people don't. Big change. How's that been?
Yeah. It is really lovely being in an environment where you've got other creative people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that about art school as well. And also like all the different departments, and there's a lot going on, and you could like pick up different sort of inspirations from different people. It was really great fun. But I think, I'm probably at a stage of life where I'm quite happy working away. We do have great community around us here, and one of my best friends in the village is a jeweler.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So that's really lovely because we get together and talk about tools
Nice.
a lot.
Love tool chat.
Yeah,
Love
like
tool chat.
bounce ideas off each other, and then there's a great photographer in the village, and then up at the Dell of Abernethy at the end of the road here, they every summer have a craft fair.
Oh, cool.
And then that's really nice because you suddenly see like all the creatives coming out of the woodwork and coming together, and it's you actually realise there's quite a lot going on.
Right.
And there is quite a bit of coming together in the Cairngorms with creative people. So yeah, it's not the same as being in a working environment with lots of other people, but there's still
space,
there's still good.
But the backside, of course, is if you were in that working environment, you wouldn't have this, you wouldn't have the bothy, you wouldn't have... There's various other things you've been able to do because of it, right?
Yeah, totally.
You enjoy it?
Yes.
Yeah?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I can tell.
I really do. And it's it is. Oh, I just feel so lucky. It's a real. I know how much of a privilege it is to be able to do something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
And you can fit your family into it. It's like. It's. I'm so thankful for that.
That's
And
good.
yeah, and and it's really lovely when people come for classes. Like, you wouldn't believe the number of people that when they come in and sit down, they say, I don't have a creative bone in my body. They're really they're worried that they're not going to be able to do it.
Right.
And I was like, you do. You just don't use it. It's like everyone has that ability to create. And, at the end of the class, when they've made something, they're like, oh, and it's almost more amazing when they come in thinking they won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
But they do it, and then they're like, I made that. I can't believe I made that. And like,
It's a good teacher.
yeah. Well, especially I think for kind of older people who think that they won't manage to do something, and then they're like, God, I'm like in my 70s or whatever, but I've just learned something new.
Yeah. Old dog new
And
tricks.
and they'll be like, oh, I can't wait to show my children that I've done this, and they're going to be so proud, and it's a really nice thing.
Yeah.
And so it's, I do get a lot of really very good quality interaction with other people, which I think it makes up for that not having creatives directly around all the time.
Yeah. Does that quality interaction, that teaching, is that what you were looking for when you left university?
Yes, I think so, because what I ended up being quite drawn towards was, I ended up volunteering. I spent quite a lot of time in Hawaii, and when I was there, I ended up volunteering teaching environmental studies to elementary school kids. Nice. And I loved that, the teaching, that kind of interaction of sharing some knowledge with someone that's all wide-eyed, and then I also spent time in Alaska, and over there I was teaching skiing and snowboarding, and
You've done a lot.
That was with people with physical and mental challenges.
Right.
Wow.
And then also back home, I did surf therapy and a little bit of horse riding as well. So it was I really was getting drawn towards teaching, but in a kind of therapeutic way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I can see that now with kind of having chats with people while we're making and stuff. It's kind of the same vibe where it's
Absolutely is, yeah.
it's the teaching, but it's also the kind of connecting emotionally and kind of being of service sort of thing. So it's definitely, I definitely think that all of that stuff that I did in the run up to it all kind of feeds into the way that I work now. Mm-hmm.
So do you think if it wasn't jewellery as the output, it would be something else but with the same ethos, the sort of teaching connection? Just jewellery seems to fit well with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's always been, I've always enjoyed teaching in a, I don't know if it's sort of, you know, thinking about the teachers that I've had in my life, you know, you get good ones and you get really bad ones.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes such a difference.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I had really good art teachers at school. I think I appreciated it when people kind of took the time to form a connection with you and be like really caring about teaching you and sharing their knowledge with you, as opposed to the ones that seem to not really care very much at all. And you know, I kind of think that's part of living, is that, you know, just going through life and picking up little nuggets along the way and then sharing them with people. It's kind of how we survive.
It's all the
That's how we got
experiences
here.
as well.
That's
Yeah.
for sure. It's definitely how we got here.
Yeah,
Like, without that, nothing really progresses.
yeah.
You touched earlier, you mentioned, you know, philosophy and picking up on people's energy, and talk a little bit about that. Is that something that you've grown to be passionate about, or were you always kind of aware? It sounds, what you're describing sounds quite stoic. Have you always been aware of that, or is it something that's just kind of naturally came to you?
I think I've always had a little bit of an interest in life and its origin, and like even when I was very young, I can remember kind of sitting having very deep thoughts.
Yeah.
Kind of like looking in the mirror and just being like, wow, like I'm alive, and like looking up at the night sky when I was little and just like wondering about it all. But then I think when I was at art school, it was, you know, it's that kind of time in life where you've like left everything that you knew and you're kind of like, I was searching for my identity.
Yep.
You know, where do I fit in here and in the bigger world? And I really didn't know. I was like, I really did not know. I was kind of floating in space for a while. I really didn't know where I fitted in. And at one point I read in a book something about people not being just one single note, and that a musical chord is made up of many notes. And that kind of really resonated with me, and I started to think of things more in terms of, you don't have to label. I don't have to say, this is what I am, this is who I am. You know, I don't have to fit into a box, because I'd never fit into any boxes. It was like, oh, it can be like a whole entire song. And I kind of think of life a bit like that. Like there's lots of different notes that come together to make your story, and everyone's song's different. Yeah. And, you know, there's influences from different places, and I kind of, I've always had that kind of feeling of not just being one person alone, but being like, you know, the kind of the drop in the ocean of humanity, and also, you know, the planet as a whole and beyond, but being a part of something much, much bigger, and a kind of an awareness of the cycle of things. Yeah. And I think that's why I quite like it when, you know, people come to me to celebrate like life and death and all the special moments that happen in between. It's like, you know, there's a lot of special life moments that are kind of celebrated, and I have this kind of like motto of connect, create, celebrate. Right. That's kind of like my thing. It's like the coming together of people, like the creating of things and the celebration of life and those connections.
And have you always had that motto, or is that something that's developed as you started to do more and more? Yeah, no, that was more when I was thinking about like my jewellery and like what is it that I'm trying to do here, and what's... Yeah. You know, it's only in the past few years that I kind of thought of that as like, I was like, all right, I need to have a kind of, like, what is it? Not trying to like label hard, but just like, what is it that I'm trying to do here? And what
is it that's driving me? And I was realising it's the connection with people and the celebration.
Yeah. You don't have to have, and what you've said summarizes it perfectly, you don't have to have a thing that labels it, but I do think it's really important to have a statement or a thing to, I don't mean it in the negative connotation of the world, but to tie you to something. Mm-hmm. I don't mean that in a restrictive manner, but I mean something just to kind of focus yourself.
Yeah,
Does that make
it's like,
sense?
what is the motivation?
Yeah.
Because without a motivation, like, I basically either need someone to tell me what to do
Right.
or to be highly motivated for a purpose.
Right.
So, you know, it works well for me having people coming to ask me to do special commissions, because it's like they're asking me to do something. They're basically giving me a brief that I have to fulfill. And, you know, I want to do it to the highest standard I can for that person, especially if it's a, you know, a special moment for them. And it's got to have that kind of meaningful power behind it to get me into doing it. And then also they're giving me a deadline.
Right.
You know, if it's for like a 40th birthday or a wedding or a whatever, there's a deadline, and it's like, okay, I'm going to get this done for this person at this time. And it's like, you know, that's how
So
I work.
lovely.
Do you think your personality and your thought method is quite conducive to being an independent maker? Because what you're describing there, like, I need a deadline, I need to do, I need to find my place in the world. It would be very easy to think, office job, 9 to 5, part of a team. You'd probably be a great team player.
Oh.
But you're absolutely not that. Like, on the surface, you're the complete opposite of that. Now, we know, because we're digging into it, that you are the opposite of that, but then you're building that into your business through classes and stuff. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, having sort of created a business and being self-employed, you might be forgiven for thinking that I'm a very motivated, sort of, you know, organised and hardworking person, but it's kind of grown organically. And I have had jobs where I've been, you know, in an office, in a team.
Yeah.
And I do work really well in that environment, because it's like people just telling me, like, do this, do this, do this. And I'm like, cool, like, get it done.
Yeah.
And so I can do that as well. I'm not all that self-led.
Right.
So I do like to have people requesting things of me, and then I will do them. So, you know, that's probably why you don't see that I've got a huge collection of pieces.
Yep.
Because I've got lots of ideas in my head. Mm-hmm. But I know that my time's limited, having a family and everything. So I focus my time on getting the things done that other people are requesting, and then doing the workshops.
Right.
And I do feel that at some point in my life, and I do think it might come quite soon, these ideas are going to come out in the form of collections.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you think it's just different seasons of your business?
Yeah.
As you grow, and obviously the business grows with you, there's just time scales. Like, it's just a practicality. At the moment, workshops, commissions, let's be honest, it's a financial practicality as well. But there is still stuff you would want to do that's fully organic from your head.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's practical, but it also has grown organically in that way, where it's like, you know, from having my son as a little baby in a basket and working away alongside him during his naps, and they nap so much when they're little, to him being more active and me being like, oh, I don't actually have as much time now. Mm-hmm. And then now he's, you know, at primary school, so the time's come back to me now that I can focus more on, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do the workshops and things when he was very little. So now that time has become available. And then, you know, there will come a time when he's away and I've got all the time in the world. So, you know, it's the amount of time that I have in a day kind of dictates the structure of my work. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is family-led, this whole business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's quite nice.
Yeah. It's like I wouldn't have this structure if it wasn't for kind of, being there for my son. But I also wouldn't have this building if it wasn't for my husband and his skills. And it feels really good to have like a little space in the garden where it's like, it's not in the house, it's detached enough that I can come out and get the work done, but it's close enough that I can go back in whenever I'm needed. So
we converted our last place. We converted the garage into an office, and we'll do something in this new place. We moved just before Christmas. I'm a huge fan of working from home. I hate working in my home.
Yeah.
And they're two very different things.
Yeah.
My dad's always worked from home, and he's got one room in the house, and that's all it's used for, is an office. And that's his best chance of working from home, but not in the home.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this. We refer to it as a compound again. This little compound that you've got. And I don't mean that in like a weird cult.
You're not the first to comment that.
Yeah, so we've got like a cult we're in it. No, it's not like that at all. So because you built the gallery, this, and the bothy.
Yeah.
How do they all intertwine into a business that really is there to serve your family? That's the vibe I'm getting at the minute anyway.
Yeah. So I guess it was like a sort of joint vision that my husband and I had, where we both were working in jobs that took us away from home a lot.
Right.
And then, it came the time where we're like, we're going to have a family, so we need to not be doing that anymore. And then we moved up here, and it was like, what is our working life going to look like? Because, I think a lot of people that live around here are here because it's the national park and like for all the beauty and the outdoor adventure, and so they move here for that lifestyle, but then they kind of have to make work around that.
Yeah.
You hear a lot about people having career changes when they come to live up here, and it's just, they have to just make it work. And so for us, we both had, so my husband was in humanitarian aid, but he was always taking photographs, and he always had the camera with him. So even when he was working in far-flung countries, he'd have his camera with him, almost doing like sort of photojournalism type documentation. And then he loves being in the hills, so he's always like doing lovely landscape photography. And so, he kind of found himself in a place where it's like, I've got thousands of like really beautiful photos.
Yeah.
Like this could be a thing, And, he's always winning awards, and I always say that he's, when you look at a really beautiful landscape and you're like, I'm going to take a picture of that. And then you take the picture and you're like, oh, it looks rubbish.
Yeah, it looks way better with my eyes, yeah.
He does the opposite. He'll take a picture of something and you're like, wow, that looks even more amazing. Yeah. And I don't know how he does it, but that he's got that natural skill. So, he was thinking, if he could kind of venture more into photography and maybe do a little bit of that alongside humanitarian work, like going on projects to take photos for organisations, and he's also kind of built up some other clients around the architecture people and things like this. And then obviously I couldn't do marine conservation anymore, so I was like, right, how am I gonna start doing jewellery in a way that works? And we both just at the same time had the feeling of, right, we want a family, we want to kind of try and make our creative visions work. Like, how do we do that together? And so part of that idea was, if we can find a house that's got enough space in the garden to build a bothy that we can rent out and get a bit of passive income, it might allow us a bit of space and time to
Good idea.
try out
Yeah.
these paths and see if we can make it work.
But it gives you that breathing space, doesn't it? Because
Yeah,
rental accommodation's good, especially around the national park area.
Yes. And, we're kind of, as we're actually, the realities of doing it, you actually realise, oh, actually, costs a lot of money to build. So we're not yet reaping the benefits, but you know, it's a long game, and hopefully down the line we'll be able to kind of level that out and start to feel like, this was
Worth it.
the right thing to do. So but it is a big leap of faith, and you know, luckily we were both in it together. We're both up for it, and I think having the little gallery space next door as well is really nice, because we've had like a few little you know, like little festive openings over Christmas and stuff, and it's really nice, like having lots of people come in, have a bit of mulled wine, and it to give something physical to, you know, otherwise our sort of social media online presence. It's like, it's quite nice for people locally to pop in,
Physically get together.
talk to us, come and like see the workshop, chat to, you know, Niv's husband's got like a million photographs, so he's got like a few in his socials, he's got a few in the gallery, but if people come in and get chatting to him and then they're like, oh no, I would really like this sort of thing, he's like, I've got one of those. You know, it's nice having that personal contact as well in that way.
That's good. Is it working for you?
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's financially it's a real squeeze. We're really still, you know, in the trenches at the moment. It's a struggle, but I do still feel that it's possible, that it's...
That's cool.
You know, I think with a lot of creative businesses, like the first few years are really hard, and it's a real scraping by month situation, but
You can see that, you can see the vision, you believe that it's going to work. So you just need to keep going.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's why I am so grateful for any customers that I have, because it's like they're literally paying for my shopping, you know? It's like if someone comes and like buys a wedding ring, it's like, oh, you're like me feed my child for like a couple of weeks here. You know, it's like, it's not like you know, you can easily get a wedding ring on a high street store, but it's
they know where their money's going.
and it's so it's so appreciated. It's like it's a really lovely thing.
Are you hopeful for a world where more people do buy in this way?
Yeah, I think
Good question.
I think that, I don't know, it's always hard to know what the general populace vibe is, because sometimes it's like the people that you surround yourself, you start thinking that's how everyone thinks, and then you're like, oh no, that's totally not.
Yeah, I try and tell myself that the people we surround ourselves with is what everyone's like. It makes me more hopeful for the world, right?
Totally. But I get the feeling that there's a general vibe of, you know, while things like Amazon are very convenient, I do think that there's an awareness that it's probably not the best format. It's definitely not something that creates a world of equals. And also, of course, you don't have that personal connection, and it's not... you know, you don't have that same. It's also like building the, you know, you can go online and buy something and it'll arrive at your door the next day, but you know, like these rings that I have on my workbench here, they arrived back from the engravers this morning, and there was a couple that came and stayed in the bothy for the weekend. They made their rings here on these benches. They chose to have the contours of Arthur's seat.
Is it Arthur's seat? We'll try and work out what the contours are.
Because that's a special place for them. And we had such a nice time during the workshop, and you know, they have like a little bit of Prosecco, and it's all like, they're telling me their story of, you know, their lives together, and you know, that's really beautiful, and it's an experience, and they're going to remember that
whenever they look at their
much
rings.
More than going online and saying, oh, I'm a size L, 9 carat white gold, all right, it costs that much, right, bing. It's a totally different thing. And it's been really lovely, actually. I've had, you know, quite a few couples in to make their rings, and they've like mentioned that in their wedding ceremony that they made their rings together, and or one couple used it as a table placing, like a photo of them having made their rings together, and it's like
that's
it's
cool.
like for them it's a really special part of their story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the more people can kind of interact and buy in that way, where it's like, it's just such a richer experience.
Yeah. And the more people that know that that's possible. So I made Kate and I's wedding rings because I've got a friend who owns a jeweller's.
Amazing.
But that was like the only place I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, because I know a jeweller.
Yeah.
I have an inroad.
Yeah.
Like, where do you even start to
Yeah.
look for that sort of
Yeah.
thing, you know? Unless you know somebody, you know?
Totally.
Knowing how important that is to you, do you feel a responsibility to make other people aware that that is an option? Because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, something that I find quite challenging is marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like obviously quite a classic.
You're definitely a maker
classic.
then. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, getting the word out there is it's not easy for me. I think that
Your Instagram's good though, like.
oh,
you know,
thank you.
Like, it's a nice Instagram feed.
Thank you, that's very kind. I find it hard to really know what to do with that, but I do have one of my best friends, I was talking with her actually just last week, and she's like a marketing guru, so she was like, I'll sort you out with that, so I was like, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, don't forget, like, companies have whole departments of marketers.
Yeah.
Like the two guys from Nomono that are here with us,
Yeah.
they are marketing for Nomono, the podcast kit that we use, has sent people to aid their marketing. They're doing a really nice, honest job of featuring people that really use it.
Yeah.
Marketing does have I think has certainly over the years grown a bit of a negative connotation with like forceful marketing, but you're a single maker. Like, marketing is a full-time job.
Yeah.
As well as being a maker. So don't give yourself too hard a time on that.
Yeah. And it's, it's the same thing for the buffet. It's like, we've got the business there, but it's like, how do we reach the people, like trying to get it out there. It is a whole other realm. But yeah, bit by bit, we're trying to get there.
If I could recommend you one book, it's got a very capitalistic title, but it's definitely worth reading. And for anyone else listening to the podcast, it's $100 Million Offers.
Okay.
And then the follow-on book is $100 Million Leads. Leads is about how you reach people. Offers is about how you build an offer that those people will want to know about.
Yeah.
It's very capitalistic. Don't be dissuaded by the 100 mil. We've read them both. We're definitely not 100. Like, newsflash, we're not a $100 million company. But they have completely changed the way we approach customers and business. And they're great for me because they're written for like a 3-year-old to read them. They're not a business book with like KPIs and CRMs all over them.
You're like, sorry, what?
Yeah, they're really good. They're worth reading. $100 Million Offers, $100 Million Leads. Because they
I'll
are...
read those immediately.
Yeah.
Or it's a podcast you can listen.
They are also
Yeah.
a podcast. I read them because I think I listened to them both first, and then I was like, right, these are good. Read them. But they're really good. Really good action steps. And for anyone else listening, they are, in my opinion, the gold standard for marketing books because they're just digestible.
Yeah.
Because you go online and try and find anything out about marketing and you're just like...
Oh, totally. It's just overwhelming.
Yeah, it is.
And you've got no idea, like, what's the right strategy for you? It's a lot. It's a lot.
How are you doing it at the moment?
Well, at the moment, I have my Instagram page as like my main thing, really.
Which is the norm for makers, having spoken to most makers.
Yeah, I've got my own webpage. Some people do seem to find me through like Googling, jewellery in the Highlands or whatever, which is good. I have remade my Facebook page. I foolishly last year was like, I don't like Facebook. I don't want to be spending time on it. So I just like delete. And like deleted all my reviews along with it. And then a couple of days later, I was like, that was not the best thing to do, because while I don't really spend much time on there, a lot of my customers do. So I rebuilt a page for that. So yeah, it's mostly social media. You know, we've kind of like old school got a couple of like posters about the nearby villages and stuff, and like some flyers, and also we have I've contacted some of the self-catering cottages nearby, and they'll like put it into their like welcome emails to people, or like put a little flyer in their
That's a great way to do it.
Brochure, so that people coming on holiday get to know about it as well.
That's a great way to do it, because that's where all the holiday custom is, right? They're in self-catering places.
Yeah, totally. And I had a really nice one.
That's a good strategy. I know you say you don't know what you're doing, but it feels like a good strategy.
Because it's like, I was thinking, gosh, all this marketing stuff like really goes like way over my head. Like, what did people used to do before they had social media and web, you know?
What did they used to do?
I was like, there would have been a sign outside, and you'd be like, oh, there's a jeweler there, and then you tell your pal, oh, there's a jeweler there, and so yeah, I was kind of thinking, try out the old school methods as well, you know.
They do still work.
Yeah,
they definitely do still work.
Yeah,
and then word of mouth as well is also good.
Yeah, word of mouth. That's why you shouldn't have deleted your reviews.
I knew that was an error.
Do you ask your customers for reviews?
Yeah,
I
do. Yeah. And
I bet they're really good.
They've been very lovely. They've been really lovely.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that quite when you get those reviews, is that like I'm doing the right thing?
Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Because you've no, like, as a maker, it's important to mention, you've no boss being like, you're doing great this week, well done.
Yeah, no appraisals.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's just the best when you get good feedback from someone, because you're just like, oh yes, like, you know, I like, I did what they wanted, and they, as a result, were, you know, had a lovely experience here, or had a lovely item to pass on, and it's that kind of just playing the role in just like sharing the love, really. Just you know, it's such a lovely thing. And when people come here for a workshop, it's often, sometimes it's someone that comes solo, for like a private workshop, and then sometimes it'll be like a couple, or like best friends, or mother and daughter, and that sort of thing. So it's like, it's people that have got a close connection to each other, and then it's just like providing a space for them to like spend really quality time together and do a lovely thing, where
you've created such a nice space.
Like I've even had a workshop where it was the first workshop I did in here, actually, and it was so it was a woman about my age, with her mother, and they were making sand casting a shell which had been her grandmother's. Wow. And she was pregnant, so it's like there were 4 generations in this room at the one time.
Oh,
that's cool.
And it was so lovely, and I was like, oh yeah, like that's the stuff.
That's what I'm here for.
I just love that.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you, when you surmise it all and all the, because although yes, you're a jeweler, you're making jewellery, there's various aspects to this. What are you more proud of? The connections, the physical product, or the feedback that you're getting at the end of it?
Oh, the connections. Like, yeah, I mean, it's all like really valuable to me, and I appreciate it all, but the being able to facilitate, you know, especially I think, you know, in Scotland, we're not really famed for being that open with our emotions. You know, I mean, I think
us Scottish people.
I think we're getting better at it, but I think that to be able to provide, I basically see myself as providing the service of allowing people to express their deepest emotions to each other. And that's, you know, that's so important, and it's often missing. And so to be able to facilitate that through the medium of silver and gold is really rewarding for me.
It's also quite fitting. I think jewellery is really fitting to that ethos.
Yeah.
Because it is, one, high value, but that, aside from the fact, but what that does lend itself to is you only really do silver and gold at special occasions. It's not the kind of thing you do every week because you went a week without eating McDonald's, right? It's like, it is for momentous occasions.
Yeah.
What's next? Do you go bigger? Do you like this size? Like what would you do if you knew you could not fail?
So I like this size. I really like that, you know, when I offer workshops, they're always private. It's you don't have like two people that don't know each other, and at the same time it's like it's either a person or loved ones that come together. So I like the size in that respect. I did have there were some girls staying up at the Dell at the end of the road who they were having they were supposed to have a hen party for their best friend, but it was during the lockdowns. So they were having a baby shower weekend for her instead, a couple of years later. And they said, oh, we'd love to come and make some jewellery. But there were 6 of them. Right. And so I said, well, you could do like 3 and 3. Or we could see if they've got a teepee up there. We could see if we can use the teepee. And I realised that in 2 of these small wooden boxes, I can fit all of the tools necessary to do a silver ring workshop.
Oh,
so
cool.
Just, they've got, you know, the sort of beer benches. I just went, set it up and had a lovely, you know, the fire going and had a lovely, so I don't have a problem with this size of workshop. And I know that if I want to have an event with more people, then there are locations where I can do that.
That's great.
So that's
really
cool.
good.
It makes it flexible in that way. Yeah, I think in terms of what's next, I think at some point, as I was saying before, there will come some ideas that come out of my head and into a collection. There's definitely quite a bit that I want to explore at some point when it feels right. But I think if I could not fail, I would be carrying on doing what I'm doing. I would be better at marketing, so just have some more people come to do what I'm doing. And I would do my own collections. I might even like to do some pieces which are of a more conceptual sort of artwork style.
Okay. Would that be less wearable? Would that be more?
Potentially. Maybe wearable, but maybe just, you know, I think I'd quite like at some point the freedom to make things which are kind of more like the vibe I had at art school, where it was like putting in a bit of like philosophy or politics into like trying to put forth a message that might be something you could see in a gallery and someone could look at it and understand what the message is. And, you know, then that could feed into some collections of more wearable pieces. And also, actually, I always have in the back of my mind the idea of doing a bit more therapy work. So maybe I had like this idea of having people could come in for a session of making, but they also know that it is actually also a therapy.
Right, okay.
You know, whether that would mean me doing some further studying to gain more wisdom in those subjects, and then being able to officially offer that sort of a thing is something that I'd really like to do. I've always been interested in the therapeutic, and you know, making jewellery itself is a really mindful practice.
In such a nice space, I think that would be a really nice package.
Yeah. You get so into it. It's a very meditative thing.
I also think there's a real marketing side to that, where therapy, certainly speaking as a man now, the therapy side to it. Kate actually put me on a men's therapy retreat weekend a few months back.
Nice.
I would never have gone. Like, man, hammer, tools, man, would not go. You could definitely get your husband in to make some jewellery. You have hammers, you have tools, right?
Yeah.
There's like a sly therapy angle there.
Oh yeah, it's so interesting. Like when men come in, it's usually with their partners. I did have someone recently came in. We did a little bespoke 2-day workshop because he was like, I want to learn how to make jewellery. He's a metal worker. But when men come in and they see this board with all the hammers on it, like, ooh. I mean, not to generalise, but they're like, oh, look at those tools, you know, and they get into it from that kind of angle, which is really nice. And I do sometimes think, I quite often ask men that come, like, what would you like to make? Because, you know, it's kind of viewed predominantly as this kind of female, feminine thing to do. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I think like a bit of like forging and casting and that sort of stuff is quite appealing.
Hot burning metal, yeah.
Yeah. Fire.
Man. Yeah, I hear it.
Amazing.
Yeah, but even, you know, it's true, like even when guys are in here, we do end up chatting long stories about their lives, and it's really nice.
Yep, men can do it too.
Yeah.
Totally. Amazing.
Kate, I've really enjoyed. Is there anything you want to cover before we wrap up?
No, but I would say I think it's really lovely what you're doing.
Thank you.
Especially in a world of very short reels and short attention span. It's really nice to have long podcasts to listen to, which I listen to in here. When I'm working away, I've been like, I've been listening to you guys. And the publication is so beautiful.
Thank you so much.
And it's really wonderful. To bring all of those people together and to showcase what they're doing is really lovely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, well, I know because that's what we do as a job. There's a lot of us out there in the world. It's just Kate and I's job to show the world that they are out there.
Yeah, especially, you know, as we were saying before, when we're in a world where people are buying from very big companies with very little thought, you know, about where things are coming from, and it's really nice to have people like yourselves showcasing people that are making things with a lot of intention and care.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate it.
My last question is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, yeah. I think something which applies both to making and to life is that you can really only do what you can with the tools that you have at that time.
Like that.
And it's, you know, in terms of jewellery making, you know, if I'm like back when I was starting out, you can make a lot with very few tools. You know, like this is 20 years worth of tool collecting.
Yeah.
And, you know, like we were saying earlier, this is really not necessary, but
But tools.
but at some point you're going to get one. But you can start off with very little. And, you know, I'm glad that over the years I kept up my practice. When I was working at sea, I still was making, and it meant that when I got to the time when I was ready to do this for a career, I still had the skills there. And more like to myself, life-wise, I think it's very easy to be judgmental of oneself and abilities and actions, but you really can only do what you have the capacity and awareness to do at the time, and that's okay, because the more we live, the more we learn, and as we get older, we start to have more of an idea of who we are, if you can say that, and the things that are important to us, and so I think, just to kind of go with the flow and be kind to yourself along the way.
That's a good answer.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So true.
Be kind to yourself along the way.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of that, isn't there? And, I go back to the 6-second rules that we talked about a minute ago. Like, we see the wow. Because that's what does well.
Yeah.
Right? We see the wow, whether it's on TV, whether it's in a magazine, even us to an extent, to the fullest extent, we put the good photos in the book because we want people to go and check out these. So it's our responsibility to best represent them. And it's why I think you've done a really good job of speaking about people's stories. And it's also why the podcast exists, because people need to hear that it's difficult. Because there'll be somebody else 10 years prior to you right now listening to, well, not right now, but in a few weeks when this podcast comes out, listening to this podcast as a jeweller, thinking, I've not got all the tools, I've not got all this, I've not got all that,
I want to be like this.
but I really want to be like that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh wait, she said 20 years, not 35 seconds.
Yeah, and I, to be honest, when I was at art school, I struggled hard. Like I was so fortunate that I had the teachers that I had, because they taught me a lot of skills, but they were also there for me emotionally, and they were very supportive, and that, I will, carry with me always. It's very valuable to have people that have got your back, and it wasn't an easy time, but I learned a lot. And if you'd asked me when I was at art school, will you be a jeweller in 20 years' time? I'd be like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I just don't have it in me. But I was at the Goldsmiths Fair in London back in October, and one of my jewellery tutors was there, and I was chatting with her, and she was saying, oh, you should come back and talk to the students. And I was thinking, I would never have imagined when I was at art school, I was kind of like bottom of the pack, because I just, emotionally, I wasn't there. Although I had the technical skill, it was a struggle. And to think, one day you might be asked back to speak to the students about your jewellery work.
You're like, nah.
I never would have imagined that. And so it's, I've not, everyone's got their own story and the path that they took out of art school. And I think probably the majority of people are not doing jewellery. A couple of people have maybe taken like quite a sort of classical route and like been at it since they came out of art school. I had to detour out of there, live a little, find out what were my motivating factors, and then come back to it when the time was right. And now it feels really right.
It feels really right. That's cool.
And I'm so thankful that I have that.
Yeah. Are you going to go back and talk to those students?
Yes, I would love to.
Good.
Yeah.
You should, because that, I think,
It's inspiring
even if there's
story.
only one person in that class that's feeling exactly the way you felt, it's really important that they hear it from you.
Yeah, that's what when my tutor had asked me that, that's what I was thinking. There might be a kid in there that's like really struggling.
Yeah.
So to give them the message that you can only do what you can right now with what you've got,
You might come out of uni or college and be like, oh, I don't know if this is what I want right now, but, maybe in 10 years' time you'll come back full circle.
Totally. And I think that was one of the advantages of studying jewellery, because I very nearly went into sculpture, which would have been cool too, but with the jewellery I learned like a trade. Like I learnt the craft skills that I could keep at over the years, and it served me well to have that now.
Good.
You learnt the skills.
Yeah.
That's the important bit, because that's the bit, no matter what happens in the world, it can't be taken away from you.
Yeah.
Like, if, God forbid, everything goes wrong, you still have the skills.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for rounding up this little mini podcast trip really well.
Awesome.
This is the third one in 3 days, and I'm ready to go back and edit them all now. 3 for 3. There was high expectations because the last 2 were great as well. So, but you delivered.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time.
glad.
We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.